a quorum for the five of us, and I know Commissioner Matlow will be joining us shortly. So at this point, Mr. Taylor, due to the craziness that we have with COVID, we usually have public comment on agenda items at this point, but let's move right into the Frenchtown Southside District Policy Formation and Direction. Oh, hey, Commissioner Matlow, good to see you. We just started. Let's go ahead and move straight into 3.01, Mr. Tedder.
All right. Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. This item is a response to recommendations from the Citizen Advisory Committee members. The Citizen Advisory Committee held special meetings on June 11th and June 18th in order to review two programs recommended by the CAC chair that could assist businesses and residents within the greater Frenchtown Southside District during COVID-19 pandemic. After review and deliberation, the CAC recommended the following two programs: a disaster assistance program for economic distressed businesses, and two, a residential rental assistance program. Based on data that we have identified approximately 799 businesses within the greater Frenchtown Southside District, which employ about 8,000 people. This includes 301 businesses within the Frenchtown District and 498 businesses within the Southside portion of the GFS District. The top three business sectors are services, followed by retail and unclassified establishments. The average Frenchtown business has less than 10 employees, and the average Southside business has approximately 13 employees. On March 25th of this year, as you sat as the Blueprint Intergovernmental Agency, you approved $1 million for the Tallahassee-Leon County COVID-19 Pandemic Disaster Relief, or the CEDAR program. This program, which was funded by sales tax, was designed to help bridge the gap between the received federal and state assistance programs by local businesses through the quick infusion of cash to help cover key expenses such as rent and utilities and operating expenses. Your agenda materials, it has the criteria that was approved by the Blueprint Board. And so the grants range from approximately from $1,500 to $5,000 per business, depending on the number of employees for the businesses. There were a total of 561 CEDAR applications that were approved and an awarding of $1.1 million in grant funds. When we get to the portion of the agenda where there's discussion, if you have questions regarding the criteria that we've had through OEV program, we do have OEV staff online if we need to have a response from them. The CEDAR scoring sheets, I think we were asked, well, how many of the businesses in the greater Frenchtown Southside District received CEDAR funding? The CEDAR scoring sheets did not have street address information, so it's a little bit difficult to determine how many of the businesses received the CEDAR grants. However, we do know that $688,000 was awarded to businesses within 4 zip codes that are tied into the greater Frenchtown District, Southside District, and that's zip code 32301, 32303, 32304, and the 32310 zip codes. I want to share a presentation for you real quickly. So, Commissioners, based on the recommendations from the Citizen Advisory Committee for the business program, the CAC was recommending a program that had was a one-time grant for $2,000 that could be used for any business operations. It would be on a first-come, first-served basis, and it would be for 2 months or until the funds allocated have been expended. The criteria, this is the criteria that the CAC recommended. And so it was pretty simple criteria to understand that we could get these applications in and quick and respond quickly to each one of those applications. The recommendation from the CAC for $1 million. That could assist approximately 500 of the businesses if you allocate $2,000 per business, which is about 63% of all estimated businesses within the Greater Frenchtown District. And again, going back to the OEV program, that $1 million served 561 businesses throughout the entire Leon County. Commissioners, before I go to the next program, actually, it might be appropriate to just go ahead and talk about the residential rental assistance program. This morning, I received a notice from the governor. I think went out on the 26th of this month. There's about 100 and, excuse me, let me pull my notes real quick. There's $250 million that he's allocating for rental and mortgage assistance programs. It's our understanding that Leon County would be the recipient of those and would be recharged for dispersing the funds that are allocated to Leon County. I also understand that on July 14th, they will be taking up an agenda item to discuss how they utilize those dollars throughout Leon County. And so with that, I would encourage you and recommend that we do not move forward with the rental assistance program until such time as the county concludes with their efforts for the dollars that will be allocated from the state.
Do we need a motion for that, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I tell you what, Commissioner Richardson, let's wait until the end of the presentation. I'll come back to you for a motion on that particular aspect.
All right.
All right, so I'm going to scroll through the criteria that we had for that. And when we talk about funding for this program, one of the challenges that we had for the Citizen Advisory Committee is where do we get the dollars to move forward with a program that is recommended? And it was a struggle, to be quite honest with you. There's dollars that are allocated to our business programs, and there's dollars that are allocated to our neighborhood plans. And what this discussion forced me to do was look at how we were allocating our dollars now and how we are allocating our dollars planned in the next 5 years to determine where the dollars could come from and how we could allocate them. And the spreadsheet that I have here is basically a budget outline with no programs included to show you in the red text what are those items that we have committed to. The highlighted yellow areas are those projects that we anticipate coming online that will be utilizing dollars, and these have been discussions partly in front of the CAC as well as the board. For example, the Frenchtown Quarters site work and the redevelopment of that project. We're anticipating in year 2023, beginning with 2023, $1 million each year that would be allocated towards that project throughout the lifespan of the CRA. So those dollars we have to kind of bake into our estimates moving forward. You know, at the end of the day, when you look at the bottom, is what we have surplus balances this year and what we anticipate would be our surpluses next year. But really in fiscal year 2022 and 2023 is when we start running deficits. So what we have as additional remaining dollars this year and for next year's budget, we're going to have to use those dollars to plug the holes for the next 2 years. And that kind of leads to one of the major discussion points. And Mayor, if I could, I threw out the briefings with all the commissioners. I've kind of developed a list of common issues, and if I can just jump off the screen. For our discussion, I think is pretty relevant, and I think there's some consistency between many of the commissioners with some of these comments. So for example, when we're talking about the criteria, I think several of you have indicated a need for additional or some modified criteria. One of those was to be identified as a business that existed prior to the existence of the COVID-19 pandemic. So a date for that would be January this year. So if a business was established by January of this year, then it would qualify for this program. There's also a recognition that not all businesses in the Greater Frenchtown Southside District have utilities. We have a number of shops that are located, that are popped up along South Adams Street and South Monroe Street, and even in the Frenchtown area, that may not have a utility account, but they have a legitimate business that is recognized in the proper forms. And so maybe it seems appropriate for those businesses to be considered as part of the criteria to receive the dollars. There's also a concern regarding allowing businesses who receive the CEDAR grants prior to receiving these funding. In other words, there may be a lot of businesses who never received any financial assistance through the CEDAR program, and those businesses should be the first to receive funding that comes out of this process. There is also a discussion from several of you about the need to show the reduction of impacts due to COVID-19. For example, there may be some businesses that have actually grown during this because they've been able to adjust based on the needs of the community and the population. That is also consistent with some of the criteria that we had from the OEV process. I think each of you indicated a concern about borrowing dollars for a program like this and taking dollars, and all of you had concerns of not wanting to take dollars from our businesses programs that we have set up, nor taking businesses from our neighborhood programs that we have set up, especially over the next 5 years. So then it came down to the bottom line. Well, is there an amount that we can move forward with without having to borrow any dollars, without having to take away dollars from our businesses or from our neighborhood programs? And I've ballparked it, but I believe between $200,000 and $250,000 is what we can certainly make it through fiscal year 2021 without any impacts. But I do have to say, budgeting is going to be very difficult when we fully understand the impacts of COVID-19. I have no idea what it's going to do with our budget for the next year following 2021. But right now, it looks like I can fund that level without having to borrow any money to make sure that we stand up this program. And so with that, Commissioners, Mayor, and Commissioners, I'd be glad to answer any questions. We do have Katrina Tuggerson here, who chairs the CAC, and she's done a really good job. And if she needs to follow up with any questions regarding the Citizen Advisory Committee's recommendations, we're all here to answer questions.
Excellent. Wayne, do we have any public comment that was submitted on this item?
Yes, sir. We had one comment.
Okay. And it's in the record, and it was dispersed to all of us as well.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. I do want to, before I recognize Commissioner Richardson, to get a quick motion out of the way in regards to the housing piece, rental assistance piece. I do want to thank Ms. Tuggerson, the chairwoman of the CAC, and all the CAC for coming up with this great program and bringing it to our attention. Thank you. I know y'all work really hard. I've spoke to just about every member of the CAC over the weekend, and I appreciate the hard work that they're doing. Commissioner Richardson, why don't you go ahead and propose a motion regarding the rental assistance program?
Mr. Mayor, if I saw Ms. Tuggerson's hand up, I don't know if it was pertinent to what's about to happen or not, but I'm sure you didn't see her, so I'm going.
I don't.
Okay.
Yes, let's. Ms. Tuggerson, would you like to provide a couple comments?
Yes, I would. Can you guys hear me? I was looking for my little hand emoji, but I couldn't find it. Again, I know you guys are all here because the CAC asked for this emergency meeting, and I think everyone and even the committee took their time and made sure that we're able to do this morning. A couple of things, and I had a couple of conversations with everybody, and it was something needed to be done. I do understand that it is more funding that's going to come available on the streets from the CARE Act and all of that we found over last week, and this conversation is being had about that right now. So this was into play before that conversation even started. Another one of the things that I would like to say, if nothing comes of this today, it is a policy set in place in the CRA that says we have an emergency plan that we can fall back on with a criteria, whatever the board decides on to move on. It's a criteria there, and we can pick it back up and work on it without starting from scratch. And so what COVID-19 has also done was make us all think as a community to have processes and things set in place. And this is what we were trying to do, is reach back out and make sure all the processes are set in place. And I thank you guys again. It was one more point I wanted to, and a reason why, and this is very heartfelt. The emergency, when we put things, what I've seen happen prior, when we put things on the CRA agenda, it's up to the CAC committee to go back and say, let me dig in a little deeper. Yes, it takes our time, it takes our volunteer time, but when this emergency piece came available, I said, well, let me see what we can do in the underserved area of the community, because that was even on the front page today on how impoverished this area is that we're addressing today. So again, I thank you guys. And am I going to be able to speak later, when we come up to the next projects? Okay, thank you. We can move forward.
We will, I'll make sure that you have the opportunity to speak right after the presentation on the next item as well.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, thanks for your hard work on all this. I appreciate it. Before we move to the motion, does anybody have any questions for the Chairwoman of the CAC? Katrina, thanks. I'll come back to you at the beginning of the next item as well. Okay. Commissioner Richardson.
So, Mr. Mayor, is the motion appropriate to not move forward with the rental assistance program at this point? Is that the motion that we need?
That's the motion, and I will second your motion.
Okay.
I agree. Let's wait and see what the county does with the CARE Act funds. And, if for whatever reason their actions don't satisfy what we want to do, we can always revisit it in the future. But this is exciting that we're able to pull down some CARE Act money.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bryant.
Commissioner Bryant and Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem.
Let me also say that this is an excellent program, the rental assistance, and I'm hoping that the county will, in fact, through the CARES Act, take care of it. But I do want to make sure that I know after our meeting next week, we will be out for a while. So if for some reason that does not happen, I think we should at least commit to coming back together on this one item and not wait until August, September to address that if it comes to be. I'm hoping that it won't, but I want to, for the record today, make sure that we have a way to get back to it.
I am committed to working with Wayne to schedule an appropriate meeting after we see what action the county does or does not take next week. I agree with you. We can't wait too long.
Sure.
So look, if it means that we got to meet virtually over the break for an hour or two, so be it. This is important.
Thank you.
Great point. Mayor Pro Tem.
I know that, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, CAC and everyone involved. I've had some conversations too, and I think it may have been in some of the comments that were submitted about if we're not going to do a rental assistance program, what about a mortgage assistance program? I know that in the past, there has been programs in place. The hardest hit was one that comes to mind that help people stay in their homes. And I'm just wondering if there's any appetite for if we end up not doing the rental assistance, if we would have an appetite for looking at mortgage assistance up to a certain amount to help people along the way stay in their homes. These would not be rentals. These would be folks who are in their home and need assistance in the area.
Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Tedder.
As a follow-up, so what I received from the governor's notice on June 24th is actually labeled rental and mortgage assistance program. So what we will do is follow up with the county and see and kind of follow that. If it does not include it, we can certainly encourage that coming from you all.
Okay.
Excellent. Great point. Commissioner Matlow, you want to jump in as well?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Wayne, do you know the time frame on that county decision? Are they set to take that up at their next meeting, or is it still?
I've heard June 14th is when they're going to be taking up the item.
On the 14th. Okay, so we'll know.
July 14th.
You mean July 14th?
Yes.
They already did. I concur with a lot of what was said. So I would tentatively say if they're not providing rental and mortgage assistance, July 14th, especially up to these areas and people most in need, I think we should immediately schedule an emergency meeting and make it work.
Excellent. There's a motion on the table by Commissioner Richardson, seconded by
Mr. Mayor?
Sure. Commissioner
I
Richardson.
want to say, I think this is a wonderful program. I want to also thank the chairwoman of the CAC and the members for bringing this up. And I'm glad that, it is being addressed by the federal government. And if not, Commissioner Bryant, as you mentioned, I certainly will be around and will be available for a virtual meeting if we need to address this, if what the federal government is doing is not sufficient for our local citizens. So
excellent.
Put that on the record. Well,
so Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Richardson, are you amending your motion to include that?
if we need to, yes.
Yeah, we can do it. So let me restate the motion made by Commissioner Richardson, seconded by myself, is that we are postponing action on a rental/mortgage assistance program until further evaluation of what the Leon County Commission will be doing on July 14th, and leaving open the option to hold another meeting immediately thereafter if the actions of the County Commission are not suffice to what we are trying to accomplish.
Right.
Wayne, are you clear?
Clear.
Excellent. Seeing no further comment. Cassandra, are you clear? Any comment from the city attorney?
No comment. Thank you. Understood.
Okay, excellent. Seeing no further comment. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Now, back to the discussion on the business assistance program. Wayne, I want to thank you. I know you've been working really hard, both with the CAC, but with all five of us as members of the CRA, in trying to put together a program that would be effective, but quite frankly, at the same time, is going to keep us from having to borrow money and
Right.
infringe upon the other programs. Let me see if I can recap what you just said. You believe that you have put together a proposal of up to $250,000 that would come directly out of our budget, prevent us from having to borrow money, but yet would not infringe upon the other business programs or neighborhood programs that we currently have. You are recommending a program that allows businesses that have a qualified DPBR license, but not necessarily a utility bill with the City of Tallahassee to qualify. You are asking that the businesses do show that they had a financial impact due to COVID-19. They have to be a business that was established by January of this year. Is that January 1 or January 31st?
Either one, your call, commissioners. Just needs to occur before we've had the shutdown of COVID.
Okay.
One.
I would say January 31st to give flexibility. And taking into consideration whether that business received CEDAR money or not, and just a straight grant of $2,000 for all businesses that do qualify. Did I leave anything out, Wayne?
Mayor, I believe you covered everything.
Okay. Why
Mr.
don't we
Mayor, I have a question though, Mr. Mayor, on one of the criteria you mentioned. The DBPR piece, I'm not sure if that's what we intended or were we referring to Department of State being registered as an entity there?
Nope, you are correct. It's the Department of State, not DPPR.
Okay, all right.
It's still early on a Monday morning, you know.
That's okay. We got you.
Right, but yeah, absolutely, you are correct. I referenced the wrong state agency, so apologize. Everybody clear? Why don't we start there with discussion? I'll tell you, I think it sounds great, and I'd be willing to support that proposal as moving forward. I know Commissioner Bryant, you wanted to jump in as well. Commissioner Matlow, Commissioner Richardson.
Sure, I'll go ahead and jump in. And the first thing is that I'm glad that we have stated criteria in order to access funds. I have no problem with the flat $2,000 as long as the criteria that you enumerated has been met. I think there was a question, and I'm looking because the criteria that I think was submitted by the CAC included the utilities, but I don't think that they really want it. And I agree that it shouldn't be utilities. But I think there was a suggestion when I met with some members that a tax return would also serve as a good measure. We don't have to include that. We can go with what you've already stated. I'm fine with that. obviously, as we move through this year and projections will be impacted by obviously the COVID-19, but I would encourage the CAC in January or whenever, if we're still in a posture of many needs being unmet, that they feel free to come back and say $250,000 was good, but we need to come back based on ABC criteria and request additional funds. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, that is something that I do feel strongly about, that a utility bill is not part of the criteria. Yeah. It was part of the criteria for Cedar. And if you think about it, we got a lot of great restaurants down on the south side of Tallahassee that operate off of propane that do not have a utility account per se. That would have automatically excluded them from Cedar, but they're registered businesses with the state of Florida and they could benefit. So I think, we're providing additional opportunity for some businesses to qualify, which is important.
Very good.
Commissioner Matlow.
Yeah, I agree with all those points. As we know, for a lot of people, the due date of the utility bill is the day before they shut it off. So we want to make sure, as long as they're, in business, they're doing business in the area, we can help them stay in business, and that's what we're here for. I agree with Commissioner Bryant. I would like to see, in the future, after we get over this emergency hump, try to find some sort of revolving loan fund for the area to keep people in business, so that it's not just money going out, but things that can help businesses perpetuate, grow in the area and pay that money back and then pass it on to the next one. But I think we're in a good start. I think $250,000 will probably go a long way since we're isolated just into the CRA district, and I'm ready to move forward with it.
Excellent. Mr. Mayor? I'm sorry. Was somebody already in the queue?
No, Mayor Pro Tem, it's all you.
Okay. I want to make sure that we're clear on something, because I think in the agenda item, the date that's in there is March 18th instead of January. So
I'm comfortable with January 3rd. The date that's being proposed is March 18th as the start of COVID instead of January?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's not a motion on the table, so Mayor Pro Tem, if you'd like to make a motion, feel free to do so.
Yeah, I think that will allow us greater flexibility to assist. So yes, it would be my motion that we accept that recommendation, but use the date of March 18th as a date that the business had to be in business.
All right.
Second.
To the motion by Commissioner Richardson. So the Mayor Pro Tem's motion is staff's revised recommendation with a business start date of March 15th.
I think in the agenda, Wayne, help us. I think it says March 18th.
March 18th.
Right. Yes.
March 18th. Wonderful. Okay. Any other questions or comments on the motion on the table?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I, of course, just wanted to lend my 2 cents, because I think this is very creative. This is what the CRA is all about. I wholeheartedly believe that, this is one of the reasons this instrument was established to help businesses in instances like this. But we're being creative, and I think it's going to certainly help our small and minority businesses in the Frenchtown Southside CRA district. And I want to applaud the CAC and the leadership for bringing this to our attention and getting this item on the agenda. And I'm certainly supportive of it.
I agree. Let me call on real quick. Madam Attorney, any comment on the motion on the table?
No, Mayor, no comment.
Great. I also want to thank Ms. Tuggerson, the chairwoman, and the CAC for creatively coming up with this idea. I also want to give a lot of credit to Wayne for working with all the members of the CAC, all the members of the CRA, coming up with a plan in conjunction with hopefully what the county is going to be doing that we can move forward with, but it doesn't impact all of our other programming. And Wayne, job well done.
Thank you.
Seeing no further comment, all those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
if I can interject now that we've had that taken care of,
Sure.
I hope that we will look at possibly this is an opportunity to try to help people stay in business, but I'm hoping that in the future we'll look at how to help them to recover from COVID. Because before this weekend and the spike in numbers this weekend, I was optimistic that we could probably look at this emergency money as a way to help them to walk into recovery. But it looks like we're not ready to walk into recovery yet because of the things that have just happened. So we're just trying to keep the doors open and try to keep the lights on, keep the propane, whatever, going. But in the future, we're going to have to look at how to help these businesses recover from what they just, I mentioned the hardest hit a while ago about the mortgages. They've been hit hard. They've been hit hard, and we're going to need to look at ways to make that happen. If we're not looking at borrowing money now, perhaps in the future, we can look at what we can do to have funds available to help them do that. And in line with what Commissioner Matlow said, some type of revolving loan or some type of assistance to help them recover from this catastrophic pandemic.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I was going to bring it up on my time at the end. I'll go ahead and mention it, and I'll reemphasize it at the end. You know, one of the things I do think we need to do is piggyback on this new program that we just created. We'll be contacting every business in the CRA in regards to this grant program that we just created and asking them to apply, obviously. At the same time, we need to remind them that every business in the CRA qualifies up to $20,000 of no match funds for facade improvements. This is a continuing program that we've had at the CRA. They qualify for $20,000, and every dollar after that is a one-for-one match. But up to $20,000 for facade improvements is huge. And so what I was going to bring up at the end as well is that we need to redouble our efforts with a great public relations campaign, reminding all the businesses in the CRA of the facade improvement program and the $20,000 that they qualify for. That's real money.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's move on to item 3.02, Mr. Tedder.
Mayor,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
excuse me, I have to attend another meeting, so I'm going to leave Lou Norvell to stand in for me for the remainder of the meeting.
What could possibly be more important than the CR? I'm just kidding.
There's definitely nothing more exciting.
Excellent.
Certainly not.
We welcome Mr. Norvell, the Assistant City Attorney, to the table. And of course, Cassandra, thank you so much for everything you do for us.
Thank you.
Let's move on to 3.02, Mr. Tedder.
All right, Mayor and Commissioners, Bugra Demerel with Demerel International has developed a proposal called South Monroe Walls for the properties located at 1303 and 1323 South Monroe Street into a commercial, retail, and arts and entertainment destination. The properties are within the Monroe-Adams Corridor Central Place District and would be expected to be an economic catalyst for additional economic development along the South Monroe Corridor. In addition to the renovation of the 33,000 square feet of commercial properties along South Monroe Street, the project proposes to host 15 rotating wall canvases that are included within the commercial properties. Would provide multiple lunch and dining options, retail service, and office space. The redevelopment project is estimated to cost $5 million, and that includes cost if the undergrounding of the utilities is approved. And so Demerel International is requesting $560,000 in financial assistance from the CRA to assist in the redevelopment expenses. If approved, staff would also recommend an estimated $216,000 in infrastructure funding to underground the overhead electric lines along South Monroe Street in order to provide for a safer and attractive gateway corridor envisioned in the South Monroe Central Place plan. Placing the electric lines underground will allow for removal of parking adjacent to the South Monroe Street. It will also allow for the incorporation of sidewalks along the entire block and the placement of street trees. Without undergrounding those power lines, you're unable to do those things. And lastly, in order to have outside seating with canopies up above, you cannot have those canopies above those outside seating areas with the overhead power lines above them. The Citizen Advisory Committee voted 6-1 to not recommend the construction funding or the infrastructure funding to place the electric lines underground. What I have done, I've asked Mr. Demerol, he's online, to present the project proposal. And then I know there's also been a significant public engagement process that Christique Henry has facilitated to address some of the issues and concerns raised by the Citizen Advisory Committee meeting. There's also a large component devoted to minority participation for the construction program. We have Daryl Jones from OEV who is here to answer questions as to what they have been working through to make sure what is said would be done if approved. Commissioners, before Christique and Demerol present, I would suggest that if any funding is approved by this board, that all the commitments that are made in attachment 5, a part of this agenda material, that would be included as part of the recommendation to make sure that what is being promised is kept with any participation by the CRA. So with that, I will pass it over to Mr. Demerol, and then Christique will immediately follow him.
Wayne. Hey, it's Katrina. Chair Daly, may I speak first, or would you like for them to?
Why don't we get the presentation first, so we're all on the same? I have not seen the presentation as it's being proposed. I've only read about it.
Okay.
Why don't we get the presentation so we all have the exact same information? You're going to be my next speaker. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Mr. Demerol, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Good morning. My name is Bura Demerol, and I'm here to present the South Monroe Walls project. We're going to look into project itself. We'll talk about the retail components and the art components of the project. We will talk about the economic output, minority inclusion. As Wayne just said, we have been working on that component quite a lot of time to this point, and Christique will jump on board to elaborate on the engagement and community engagement portion. Wayne, are you, is Melissa putting that up, or do you expect me to put the presentation up?
We can include it in there. Melissa, can you pop up the attachment 6? Or do you want me to grab that?
I don't have it on my screen. I can get it in just a second.
Let me grab it.
There it is. All right. All right, sounds good. So project will be located on South Monroe Street, coming down from downtown Tallahassee. This will be at the first intersection, and the first intersection is Oakland Avenue. Property is starting at Oakland Avenue and going all the way down to the next block, which is the Harrison Street. And we have somewhere around 320 foot of street frontage, along with somewhere around 25,000 cars passing in front of the property. This slide is showing you that the recent developments around the area, proximity to Cascades Park, and also Proof Brewing Company across the street, Happy Motoring, and the Lucky Goat Cafe that recently took place in the area. Now, we are proposing this project as a gateway to the South Side neighborhood. As you see, this will be taking up the first main block coming down on downtown Tallahassee. Let's move on to the next one, Melissa. Wayne. These are the existing conditions of the site. You will notice that we have somewhere around 9 to 10 units, all commercial units. Units are in pretty bad shape in terms of the structural components. We are proposing to renovate them all, and we'll talk about the details in a second. But property, the units currently have those parking spaces in the front, and we will be proposing to replace those parking spaces into outdoor seating patios. and we'll talk about that in a second also. There are two reasons for that. One is every time cars going in and out of these spots, they are interrupting the Highway 27, South Monroe Street. We would like to get rid of those for safety purposes. And another purpose is we would like to beautify the street frontage. This is the main goal here, and this is the reason why we are here mainly. I believe we can beautify South Monroe entry, Southside neighborhood entry with this project, install streetscaping, landscaping to achieve our goal. Moving on to the next one. Next slide.
Is it not showing? It's showing on my end.
Everyone can see?
No, we don't have it. There we go.
There we go. So this is what we are proposing. Proposed architectural design is here. We will change small components later here and there, the colors and small facade improvements. But what we are proposing is a major local and tourist attraction in Tallahassee. It will be the reason why we call it South Monroe Walls. Walls stand for the art walls. As you will see on this notice in the back, as Wayne mentioned, that we will be building 15 canvases, and we are proposing this to be an outdoor mural gallery. And I believe that this concept will drive a lot of traffic onto the property. It will be bringing Tallahassee community together. This is in very close proximity to Cascades Park. And we believe that a lot of traffic from Cascades Park will be able to come to South Monroe District, to South Monroe businesses. We are proposing brand new facades for each of those units. Moving to the next slide.
Should be there.
There
you go. And this picture shows the proximity to downtown Tallahassee. You'll see on the left top corner how we would like to build those frames and canvases. You'll see on the picture on the right side also that we are proposing to install semi-impervious surfaces in front of the walls so that residents can have a clear path to walk around the property 360 and visit those artwork that we will have it on there through the local and visiting artists. On to the next one.
Should be there. Must have a little lag.
Yeah, it did change. Okay, there we go.
There you go. We are, and when you can actually continue, and I'll keep up with the speed. We are proposing roof replacement, electrical rewiring, brand new air conditioning for each unit, plumbing upgrades. As you notice that we are proposing creative facade framing. Outdoor seating is an important component. We have 3 restaurants on this property as of now, and we'll talk about the business component in a second. But for those restaurants, outdoor seating and pergola installations are within our renovation plans. Now, you'll notice here on those 2 pictures that we are proposing to beautify the South Monroe Street front of it, sidewalks and landscaping. Walkable design, this is very important for us because we would like to have Tallahassee community come on site and visit the artwork and also able to walk around the property in a very accessible fashion and go to those restaurants and the retail shops. We are proposing site lighting. We would like to have this property on an 18-hour schedule. We would like to make sure that everyone can visit this also at night. This will also provide clear visibility of the front, South Monroe front, so that the facade improvements are very visible. So business interest, as of when we submitted this to CRA staff back in March, we had somewhere around 80% of these units reserved through LOIs. Right now, after our community engagement efforts, I'm happy to say that we are at 100%. I have somewhere around, I believe, as of today, 15 LOIs to cover all of those units, and somewhere around 8 of those units were already reserved through previous LOIs. So business interest is in place. As a developer, I'm very confident that we will have 100% occupancy on all of these units. Now, there are a couple additional points here that one of the reasons why we are requesting this funding is to make sure that we can keep the rental rates at an affordable level. We are proposing rental rates at a $14 to $15 per square feet. And we have submitted a package, and I'm sure you have reviewed that. This is actually pretty low compared to the new developments within 1 mile radius. $14, $15 per square feet in addition to the art component of this development. I believe with those things coming together, small businesses and local businesses will be able to benefit from this concept, this real estate concept that we are proposing. And I would like, as a developer, I would like to make sure that small businesses are actually making money, being in place, and able to sustain in a long period of time. So keeping the rental rates at a 14, 15 affordable level was from day one my priority. So I believe if we keep this project as is, it will continue to be 100% occupancy. I believe this concludes the presentation. Again, commissioners, we will talk about the minority inclusion portion of the project, economic output of the project, and the community engagement. For those portions, I'll have Christy Henry to come on board, and we might go back and forward to clear any questions that you might have on this project.
Good morning, Commission. How are you doing today?
Ms. Henry, good to see you. Quick question, just for statement. Let me remind you, if you are a paid consultant on this project, to please register as a lobbyist with the clerk's office in regard to the CRA.
Okay. I am not a paid consultant to this project. I am a volunteer consultant to the project.
Okay.
I was brought to the project by a person who was interested in making sure that the community understood what Mr. DeMuro was doing with this particular development. So based upon my understanding of real estate is where my my support and also my consulting with him as a community person that understands real estate and understands community engagement came into play. So I want to go ahead and to the point that Mr. DeMuro said, I want to just kind of give you guys some insight on, first of all, when we went before the CAC, I heard clearly they're concerned about community engagement, and I am a huge proponent of legitimate community engagement. And so my consulting with him went around two parameters. The first is, and when I say consult, my recommendations to him was to, first of all, make sure that you get in reach with or invite or at least make aware at least 40 organizations that work in Southside that are Southside advocates. And he made sure that we incorporated that in the full plan that we provided. Also, the second point was making sure that the community in which he was doing his development in had benefit from that development and that it was very strategically implemented. So I'll be going through those steps that the development has taken since then based upon those recommendations and the engagement that has resulted, which is really exciting. So our goal initially was to connect with over 30 groups, associations, organizations with an interest in Southside Tallahassee, and provide venues of authentic input, engagement, and idea integration, and also establish a robust database record of performed engagement activities resulting in actions and make those communicated to you as the public investment source. So I am glad to say that we not only exceeded our goals with that, we sent over 2,000 emails to folks within the Southside area. We enlisted over 42 organizations, group associations, and we sent a list of all those associations that were made aware of the project and those that participated to invite them to the series of 6 virtual Zoom charrettes. We also performed the series of Zoom charrettes, not just on Zoom, but we integrated it with the Facebook SOMO Walls site, which gave us great access and great exposure to even a larger audience of residents and citizens interested in the project. We also conducted on the 11th of June a drive-through community charrette to connect the community to the site, which was very well attended despite the rain and the weather. And we are glad to say, again, it reinforced real positive input to Mr. DeMuro in regards to the 6 charrettes informationally that he gave out and put real bones to the community of what he was proposing. We also were able to get pretty good coverage of the project as well through the Tallahassee Democrat, through WTXL, WCTV, and we were able to get coverage of these events. We also had WFSU to come out as well to do a small segment on the project. The full project and coverage and interactive information is available at SOMO Walls TLH, to which by our group's recommendation, Mr. DeMuro not only added an additional engagement portal as well as an FAQ and a get involved, but also provided copies of all the documents that you have in hand to the community for their review and their response as well. So it's really been a great call and response and has built great energy in the community because we took those steps. So we have also, based upon that community charrette series, we've identified persons that are interested in being a part of what we call this South Monroe Arts Collaborative. And that would be the group that would be working and people like Royce Lovett and Enrico Seisel, she was on the call, really excited about serving in that capacity with this group to make sure that the art integration there speaks of the community, the soul of Southside, and it's not just something that doesn't reflect the citizens and the neighborhoods and the community where it is in. We've also emailed and tagged in Dr. Valencia Matthews, as well as other art voices within the community to bring them to the table, including the Southside Arts Complex, as well as the Cross-Cultural Coalition of Southside as well. And most excitingly, which all of it's exciting, but when we came to the CAC and I heard their concern about making sure that the promises made by this developer are kept. And so in partnership with the BBMC Construction Council, which is the Big Bend Minority Chamber, a really, really strong construction council, we created and authored a minority inclusion plan for this project and formed from that minority inclusion plan a construction inclusion team that will work beside the developer to ensure that development goals are met, which are at 35%. And also they've taken the step further in making sure that they identified within Greater Frenchtown Southside, as well as the whole Leon County community, every potential minority contractor that could benefit or could place a bid with this project. We've also gotten agreements from of course, the minority small business development from OEV, as well as the small business development at FAMU, to make sure that the process is seamless, and in partnership with the BBMC and other chambers like the Capital City Chamber. We welcome all involvement on this front because it will take everyone to make sure that every contractor in this city is involved. Since we've done the meeting that OEV called last week, we've identified groups of additional 42 subcontractors within the city that are excited about the job opportunity and working alongside OEV to obtain certification as minority vendors. So this has really created a very positive energy moving forward for that segment. So to wrap it up, we've conducted our identification and education. We've gotten in contact with every neighborhood and contact leaders that's surrounding there, which includes FAMU Neighborhood Association, Myers Park, Woodland Drive, South City, Indian Head, Lehigh Acres, Greater Appalachia Ridge, Greater Bond, and College Terrace, all of those neighborhoods within a 1 to 1.5 mile radius of the actual site, and have been met with great and positive feedback from those neighborhood association, and have gotten letters of endorsement from many of the neighbors in Myers Park and Woodland Drives directly. And we are also going to be working in partnership with organizations like the South City Foundation to talk a little bit about the history of racism and disinvestment and its impact on land use, public safety, education, and community health, and how that hinders economic growth in areas like a Southside Tallahassee, and compose feedback surveys because we really like the energy, the engagement created, and we want people to learn better how to advocate for improvements to their community, which the developer will support as well. We have here links to all of the Zoom videos. Several of the commissioners, thank you, attended those meetings as well as members of the CAC. And we've gotten great post comments from those Zoom calls from those folks that have attended. Those links are available to you, and they're also available on Facebook as well. So they're still published to Facebook and available for review from there. And in closing, it's a lot, but I'm trying to make sure I fit within my time frame. I would like to make sure that we understand the economic impact of this particular development. So we have a project cost assumed of or investment of $2,879,606 based upon construction value. We have a benefit agreement of 35% of that job going to minority and Black contractors, which equates to a current value of $1,007,862.27 of jobs. And we also have, to the point earlier, created a construction inclusion team that will ensure that this is facilitated and carried out successfully. I would love for it to exceed 35% with the efforts that we have put in place. But I am so excited about the job generation, about the resume generation that this will do, particularly for minority and African-American businesses. And then the final point.
Henry, I'm going to ask you to wrap up your comments, okay?
Okay. And the final point is that Mayor and City Commission, this is a template. The CAC has forced this developer to come up with a template for inclusion that can go all the way down South Monroe, South Adams, and even into Frenchtown to ensure that minority inclusion, ensure that legitimate engagement, ensure that citizens can champion development in their community instead of feeling like development is infringing upon their community. And we're really excited and really grateful to the CAC's rejection, which caused us to dig deeper and caused us to make sure, caused the development to make sure that it definitely engaged and make sure it incited the interest of the residents and the citizens.
Great, thank you. Chairwoman Tuggerson.
Well, I don't know if I need to go after Christine. She covered everything. She's very thorough. Thank you for everyone on this project. And I just wanted to, from the CAC, when we received the project, and Christine mentioned at the end of her discussion, the processes. One of the huge things in the components when I came into the CRA was the structure, and what we're doing now is building an infrastructure for all projects to come in where everybody will see a fair equality is when they come to the CAC, when they go to the CRA board, and when how they're proportioned out throughout the community. When we received the project from the CAC, we only had a week. I think I received the project from the whole team because I always communicate with the CRA director. I received it a little earlier, but by the time the whole team got there, it wasn't enough time. So we shot it down. With that being said, I said it was not enough community engagement. What the project has done so far, they have come back with more community engagement, more output. It was phenomenal. What I would like to see also moving forward is that every project that is brought to the CRA is done in this process. Everybody jumped on board. Everybody was just excited about it. And I am not knocking that at all. Anything that happens, I get business a lot. I may look a little slow, but I get it. Anything that happens on the other side it's all good. It's all good. We all drive down there right now. We love to see beautiful things. If they're not down on the south side, people are going to drive across town to go to them. So I get that. But the processes, I think, and I was sharing, and I can say I was sharing with Chair Daly, that I think that the team that we have set in place now, we're all passionate about making things move according to what is going on. The processes, as we move forward, we just can't make it with emotions. It has to be with structure, so that when we're all out of position, it will still continue. And I think that is what, because when I mentioned, and one of the things for is when we went over the graph, and I'm gonna end mine up here. When we went over the graph of every dollar amount, as far as other projects, one of the things that stuck out in mind is the project is Chuck's Place. I did not see that abundance. I know that the CRA staff helped him, but just the over an abundance where the whole community came in and said, let me make this happen. And that is that's another whole project down there on the south side that will be beautiful. And it's further closer down to Piggly Wiggly, the other plaza across the street from that, which I'm losing my thoughts right now. But it's further down. I did not see everybody jump on board. It's like, let me make this happen. So if we as a collective form, just like what Christique is forming now with the collective Southside team and engineers can make that happen, it will be beautiful. And this is something that me and Daryl even spoke about, is making sure and being intentional. And I think this is what's happening now. And Mr. Dumont, I think your project is beautiful. It's just that I wanted to see more of a process set in place. And I thank you guys for bringing that back to us. And we would, as a CAC committee, we would have loved to have this brought back to us so that they can feel like they were part of the process. Now, we did skip that. And I'm speaking from my team we have worked so hard, and we didn't have the opportunity to say, okay, let's move forward to the CRA board. But since we skipped that process, we're here now, and I appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor.
Before we get into discussion, let me just ask, do you have a question specifically to Chairwoman Tuggerson?
Well, actually, it may be a question, but I can wait.
Just for the record, Mr. Tedder, did we have any public comment submitted for this item?
You're muted, Wayne.
I'm trying to be respectful. I do believe we had 2 comments from the same individual on the project. One came last night and the other this morning.
Okay.
Wayne, this is Sheila. I think I don't think that the comments on this project were from the same individual, and I may need to get Melissa to help me. Melissa, one was actually from a citizen that is a part of the CAC.
That's right.
And then one is from another individual. Okay.
My apologies. I absolutely missed that.
All right. Mr. Mayor.
That's okay. Let me come back to the Mayor Pro Tem, and then I'll come to you, Commissioner Richardson.
Okay.
I wanted to piggyback on what Ms. Tuggerson said. I did attend one of the online charrettes, and I believe that the project is going to be a beautiful thing. But we have processes and procedures in place for a reason. And my biggest concern is that it did not go back to the CAC. And having served on the Planning Commission, I know what that feels like when you do the work, you make a recommendation, and it doesn't come back to you with any changes or what have you. It goes on to the next level. But it still remains that the recommendation from the CAC, which is a part of this process, was to not accept the project. Now, I understand that a lot of work has gone on since that meeting, but there was a CAC meeting held that this information could have gone back to, but it did not, the special CAC meeting, it did not go back there. And I'm not sure why that occurred, but I think we have to be very careful in following our own process and procedures for transparencies, for accountability. I appreciate the work that has gone in. And Christine, if you're not being paid, somebody needs to pay you, because you can sell ice to people who got plenty of ice. But I agree too that this should have gone back to the CAC. And since Ms. Tuggerson mentioned Chuck's Place was handled differently. They visited each one of us commissioners. They told us face to face about the project. And when it went to the CAC. so that when it got to the CAC, we were already familiar enough with the project. And then when the CAC made some suggestions, they went back and they came back to us commissioners, and then they went back to the CAC. So all I'm saying is that we have to follow our own processes. Are we disenfranchised or make people who volunteer on these committees become disenchanted with the work if we're going to bypass them? Now, granted, it is up to this board to decide to accept the CAC's recommendation or not, but they need to have the opportunity to see everything so that they can make an informed decision. So that is my issue at this point. Can it be resolved? I'm sure it can, but right now that's where I'm sitting.
Wayne, let me ask you a quick question, because it was my understanding actually that a meeting was tried to be held for the information to come back, but we could not secure a quorum for the CAC to hold that meeting for the information to come back. Am I misunderstood on this point?
No, sir. So on June 1st, we had a meeting. There was nothing on the agenda item. We did query the Citizen Advisory Committee members if they would like to have additional discussion with this project, and we did not get enough interest to bring that item back and have a CAC meeting at that time.
All right. Well, I think everyone is making fair points and comments on this one. And yeah, it is important to get as much input as we possibly can. Mayor Pro Tem, you still have the floor unless you're ready to release to Commissioner Richardson.
I yield.
Okay, Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree with both Ms. Tuggerson, the chairwoman of the CAC, and Commissioner Bryant. I think, I'm sorry, Commissioner Williams-Cox, excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem. But what I want to thank the CAC for, because we've had issues with the Greater Frenchtown Southside CRA, CAC in the past. And that's why I was so excited, Chairwoman Tuggerson, when you came on board, because I knew that you would bring that kind of leadership and structure to the CAC, that we would get good feedback and advice from that organization, and you've done that. I agree, and I wholeheartedly agree with what you had to say about having a procedure in place, that everybody knows what the process is, that everybody goes through that same process, and then a recommendation comes from the CAC to the commission as the CRA board. So I wholeheartedly agree with all of that. And my question is, because I think it was a matter of timing with this project as well. And if someone could respond, Wayne, if you could respond to that.
Yes, sir. So with the COVID pandemic and the lack of ability to have in-person meetings, it did limit our ability to have the CAC kind of get a initial review. I know Mr. Demerel, he came before the CAC about 1.5 years ago. He presented his project, and at that time it appeared to be, and it was a different citizen advisory committee. And so that is, in my opinion, is probably an error on my side, that he should have brought this back to the existing CAC, not one that no longer is in place. But at that time, the only issue that was outstanding was whether or not he was going to impact a historic home on the backside of the development. And so when that issue got removed and the project came forward as is without any impacts to the historical component, then I felt that the process to some extent had been followed, where he went to the CAC, got some initial feedback, and then he brought the project back. Moving forward, I've talked to Chair Tuggerson, and there will be no other projects that move forward through this process without coming to the CAC first to say, okay, this is what we are planning to do on this property. We want your feedback, and then we'll go out and do the things that we need to address the issues that are raised by the Citizen Advisory Committee. I think that step alone will help these types of issues that we're dealing with today. And with that, I take responsibility for that, and I will make sure that we follow a decent and normal process moving forward.
Hey, let me just jump in and say, look, the developer has done a great job with his proposal, working through the process. the CAC has done a tremendous job, trying to gather as much information and dig in. And Commissioner Richardson, you're absolutely correct. I mean, it is a new day with the CAC, and we're thrilled to have the leadership serve. And Wayne, you're trying to deal with a global pandemic and all of the rules and regulations associated, as we all are, with how do we meet, what's the public record and everything. Look, everybody's trying to do the best job that they possibly can. I don't think that there's anybody in default in this. Absolutely. I take the CAC's recommendations to heart, to the point to where I called everybody and spoke to, at least left a message with everybody on the CAC yesterday to talk through this issue. Let me go ahead and jump in, and we'll start the commission discussion at this point. I am thrilled with this project. And Mr. Demerol, I've never met you before. Thank you so much for wanting to invest in Tallahassee and wanting to invest on the south side of Tallahassee. You are proposing to redevelop an entire city block. And in my own perspective, this is an anchor. This is how we start massive redevelopment. I like your vision. I like the ideas that you have forward. I am thrilled with the fact that you are not only committing to, but exceeding our minority business-owned standards for construction. I love the fact that you are putting in place lower than normal cost per square foot to ensure that the businesses that want to stay can stay, and that we can maintain minority-owned businesses on the south side. And quite frankly, it's going to be an absolute incredible development. I really do believe in that. I am wholeheartedly in support of the fact, and quite frankly, right now with the global pandemic and in a recession, it's not like we have a bunch of developers that are willing to take this risk right now and develop on the south side of Tallahassee. And for that, I thank you. And again, it's an entire city block. And this is amazing. Everyone that I have spoken to is very excited about this potential. Yes, there have been concerns in the beginning about design standards. How do we maintain the character of South Monroe Street? How do we make sure that we are preserving, the flavor of Tallahassee and making sure that we're doing everything right? I like your proposals. Obviously, we will have a say in design standards as well. Obviously, and I agree with the comment that was made earlier that we should memorialize in the agreement what you are proposing for us. And that's a win-win for everyone. I not only support the initial request from the business side, I also tremendously support the undergrounding of utilities from a planning perspective. What you are proposing for cafe-style seating on Monroe Street, alleviating the parking and traffic situation on 27, both on the northbound lane, but it would also impact the southbound lane as well. I think that that is exactly what we need. It creates the space that is inviting, that people want to attend. Quite honestly, we're having a bigger conversation at the city when we talk about storm resilience, about undergrounding utilities. We require all new construction and redevelopment in Tallahassee, from the city of Tallahassee perspective, not just CRA, but all new construction to underground as well. So it is in line with the principles and philosophy of where we're going. And I look forward to supporting a motion that does move forward with both the business request and the underground utilities portion of this project. With that, I will turn it over to my colleagues for comment.
Oh, I'm unmuted.
Commissioner Richardson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm having problems here this morning, but at least I think I'm on the audio.
Okay, no worries. We can hear you fine.
Okay, so I'll just finish very quickly. I think that we've got a process in place now that is solid, will involve community input, significant community input, and the CAC will be involved in that process. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. And I think that this project will be a welcome addition to South Monroe. I appreciate Christique for all the work that she has put into this to involve the community, the contractor. I want to give you credit for what you've done as well, because you didn't have to do it. So I just think we have a tremendous process in place that we can use going forward when we're looking at projects of this sort for the Frenchtown Southside CRA. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I got Commissioner Bryant, Commissioner Matlow. I'll come back to Mayor Pro Tem. Commissioner Bryant. Did we lose Commissioner Bryant?
You're muted.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me start again. I read with great interest the detail on this agenda item. And first of all, I think that the project itself is very forward-thinking. I am extremely excited to hear from Chairwoman Tuggerson that the first entree to this project was obviously years ago to a different commission, but since they were not aware of that, I can see very well how they felt when a project is moving forward and has not come to the CAC. And I can also see how the developer is thinking, well, we went to the CAC and we're doing what they told us to do. So herein lies the greatest challenge that we all have in effective communication. Right. So we are where we are today. And what I heard Chairwoman Tuggerson say is that this group has now gone back and done exactly what the process should have been up front, to gather information, bring it back, to have the charrettes, get community input, and all of that now has been done. And I actually was reading one of the concerns, and I guess this was early on, was about minority participation. And what has been put forth now with the 35% for minority businesses in and of itself, and I think Christine actually gave an amount, and I don't remember what it was, but it was substantial, as that going back into the economy of minority businesses such that they too can move forward in COVID-19, I think is also commendable. So I just want to say that I am in total support of this project, total support. I do want to throw on the line, though, that one of those murals that he's talking about should say Black Lives Matter. We have been talking about that at the city, and even if it's somewhere else, if we're going to put that up and it's a gateway into our city, it would be a good place to start. So that's not a part of, obviously, the recommendation, but I wanted to put that on the table.
Commissioner Bryant, are you making a motion for $560,000 in construction grant funds and $216,000 in infrastructure funding?
So moved.
I will second that motion. Commissioner
Also, Mayor.
I'm sorry?
I second it also.
Okay. Commissioner Richardson has the second. Commissioner Matlow, and then Mayor Pro Tem, I'll come back to you as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I have a few questions. Just one question for Mr. Demerol. How long are you proposing holding the $14, $15 square foot rental rate for the tenants? If you don't mind me asking.
Well, that is going to depend on the tenant type, and it's going to depend on what kind of businesses we get. But this could be hold up to 8 years. It depends on, again, what type of tenants that we are getting.
Thank you. First off, I would say, I think it's a nice looking project. I think it would be good for the area, but I do have some concerns, not with you specifically or the project, but just how the CRA is operating at large. And so one concern that comes to mind is we just looked at our budget in the last item, and we don't have too much available money outside of to bring new things in. I think what we just looked at actually put us into a deficit. That causes me a lot of concerns. And for Director Tedder, my question would be, as CRA director, how we operate. Every year we do an annual budget, and it would seem like if we're going to do bigger projects that need bigger asks, I think currently the biggest thing we budgeted for is a $50,000 improvement. And as we move away from tax increment funding or giving tax breaks, and we get into grant funding, hundreds of thousands of dollars, it doesn't seem like that's going into any sort of budget at the beginning of the year. So my question, Mr. Tedder, going forward, how do we let people know that these opportunities are even available? Why don't we have a program set up for bigger development and actually budget that on the front end rather than receiving projects mid-budget cycle and then it's up to a developer with no set process to have to go out, build community support and all these things and really try to build into a program that frankly doesn't exist. Tedder, could you speak to that? Just the budgets we have for projects like this, how many we can do per year, how many we can do over the life of the CRA, and what you feel like a process should be.
Absolutely, that's an excellent question. And if you recall during the discussion with the emergency program, the budget and how it's laid out is very unique that no one has seen up until this point this year. What we have included is a budget that is based on the priorities. They're clearly identified by category. What is the number one priority? What is the number two priority? And so forth. And under each one of those priorities are line items for those priorities. For this particular case, we have a line item that we identified for major projects and for contingencies for the CAC or for the CRA. And that was, I set aside a budget of about $400,000 a year based on this concept. Now, you guys will all have the ability to mold and modify the budget proposal when we bring it to you in August. But that is the concept, is have about $400,000 a year that would be allocated to these projects and for contingency things that you all feel is important to be funded. With that, the way we are structuring, the way we've recommended structuring this is not pay out all at one time. Mr. Demerel has to succeed with his project. He has to get a certificate of occupancy, and he gets his initial installment of $112,000. And at the beginning of each budget year, it's $112,000 that would be paid out towards this project. So what that allows us to do is consider other projects that come in, so long as we work within the $400,000 that we set aside each year for these major projects. And I hope that would be very clear when we bring back our budget proposal and how we're trying to allocate money, not for just next year, but for the full 5 years looking out. And that's something I don't think you've really had the ability to see, but you will up until this point, but you will in August.
Okay. So I guess to get back to where this project started and where we're trying to go, I think it would be prudent if we really laid out a strict criteria for what we're looking for in these larger developments. For me personally, this development checks off a lot of boxes. It's existing structures that you're renovating. I appreciate the street improvements. I appreciate I think it's a 35% minority participation and those sorts of things. Those are all good metrics. But why don't we make that an actual criteria? Why don't we look at, if it's owner occupied, how you get points and how you can get to a project that can actually apply for $500,000. So I don't want to be, it seems like, Christine, I think you've done a great job, but you've set the criteria yourself. We put it on the community to come out and say these are things that are valuable. But as a CRA, I think this needs to be mapped out. It needs to be on our website of, letting people know, letting other developers know. Yes, there is a potential to get a $400,000 grant from the CRA, but you have to check off X, Y, Z. And I'm not saying what X, Y, Z is today, but I don't think we can just keep taking projects in. And it's, again, not to the fault of the developer, because we just don't have a process for you a typical one for you to go through. And if we lay that out and then that goes to the CAC and everybody's getting the exact same presentation, because here we are, we have a denial from the CAC. I think the staff recommendation is do not approve. And I'm conflicted because I would like to see the development happen, but I don't think we've laid it out clearly how to get there. So today, I am in favor of the street improvements. I am in favor of the undergrounding the utilities portion, but I'm not in favor of the bigger private development portion, just because I don't think we have the right process in play. And I think if we did, and then it went through a CAC, then I could get there. So that's where I'm at today. Thank you.
I have Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Williams Cox, and I'll come back to Dr. Bryant. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have like maybe 4 or 5 questions here. First of all, Wayne, if this is granted, will the payments be made in increments on an annual basis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In the said amount. And why could this not have waited to go to the regular CAC meeting? When are they scheduled to meet again?
August 3rd.
Okay, why could this not wait until August 3rd so that the CAC has another opportunity to review all the information that you provided to us today?
I'd have to get the developer to respond to that. I think he was working on some loan issues and things like that. So, but he's better to respond to that than I am.
Mr. Demerol.
Thank you, Commissioner. We would like to, we have a loan commitment on this project, and our commitment will expire very soon. So we have secured financing moving forward for this. We do not have time till August, and I'm afraid if we wait till August, we won't be able to secure similar financing. As you know, post-COVID-19 financing issues and funding of projects of this kind is a little bit shaky. So since I do have the commitment, I would like to move forward and execute this.
Okay, that would have been good to know as a part of your presentation, that you have secured funding and that you have to move by a certain time in order to be able to get that funding. That would have been a key thing to know. The other thing is, and this may be for Darryl Jones, the 35% minority participation. I know OEV will be monitoring that. I would ask that a report of that come back to the CRA on a frequent basis to see where we are with that, because so many times in the past people have agreed to do certain things and then they say they can't find the labor to do it, or they bring it from out of town. I think that it's going to be crucial that we find this 35% minority participation in Tallahassee or in Leon County, because we want to keep that dollar rotating in our county. So Darryl, I see you're up. How you doing? You looking good.
Thank you, ma'am.
So this is gonna be critical, because we're gonna need to monitor this, because it's gonna send a message to anyone coming behind this project and to the community that we're serious about this minority participation. So can you talk to me a little bit about what we can do to do that?
Certainly. One of the good parts about this, members of the CRA board and commissioners, is that based upon the direction that we received from you through the IA board and the city commission process, as you know, we are now have doubled the number of businesses that are available to respond to this demand through our having now brought on the OSD certified minority businesses as well. So our numbers have increased twofold. So the ability for us to be able to meet the aspirational target, whose aggregate is 23%, that would be monitored by us most directly. But as you are aware, he's exceeding that aggregate goal by an additional 12%. So we'll be working in tandem with him, as will Keith Bowers and the Family Small Business Development Center, and helping to provide financing packages for those businesses that qualify to work on this project, so they'll be able to manage their finances and be completely responsive to the demands of a project of this size.
Okay. I would also like to add that where possible, folks who've gone through our Tempo program also be a part of the work, the people doing some of this work, because we're training local people to be able to do some of this work. So I would like to see Tempo graduates or participants added into that.
Mr. Cox?
Yes, sir.
Again, following your all's direction, through our policy, the developer is also taking advantage of the externship and apprenticeship model that we have in our new consolidated policy. So they will be reaching out to, his plan is to reach out to Lively Vocational Technical College, TCC, the Tempo program, as well as those persons who are made available through apprenticeship and externship programs through CareerSource as well, according to the policy that you all helped us to design.
And universities, because they, as well as the universities, because there's a need for internships and externships there as well. And my final thing is, we do need to document this process. It needs to be in writing. It needs to be external facing, so that anybody else coming to ask for this kind of money, they know what they got to do to make this happen. We're doing things differently, granted, and we've got to make sure we're doing it the same for everybody, and so that everyone has. And I look forward to, Wayne, we've talked about a portal that will have all projects that are coming to CRA in that portal, and so we can track it for the status, but we can also have something out there that says, if you want to come and you're a developer and you want to come and do work in our town and you need CRA dollars, this is what you're going to need to do. And I think that document needs to be developed with the CAC and the CRA staff to make sure that we're hearing all our citizens' voices, as well as surveying our community to see what we will be willing to bear, because these are real dollars. And I understand that the developer has financing available, and congratulations, because you're right, it's hard to get financing. A lot of minority businesses are not getting finances, and so we're having to do emergency programs to try to help them stay afloat. And so I like what I see. My only issue was the process. And so we're now going to fix that, and going forward, others will need to follow that process. And I will also offer to you, Mr. Demerol, that we should not just be meeting you for the first time when you present the project. When I say we, I mean the commission. There is an unspoken kind of process that if you want us to know about your project before you go present it, come talk to us one-on-one. And I've not had a conversation with you. I've seen you online only. And that's unusual for me, because I'm a commissioner who's out in the community, and Christique would tell you, I'm available, and I've not had an opportunity to talk with you. People have called me about you that I know and respect, but I haven't had the opportunity to speak with to you yourself. And as I always say this, I have a Bible story where the parents said that the child is of age and he can speak for himself. So people are talking to me about you, but I have not heard from you about you. So we're going to fix that, and we're going to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The motion on the table made by, Commissioner Matlow.
Yeah, just briefly.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Bryant, too. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm going to, Commissioner Bryant, I was going to ask if you'd be willing to amend the motion just to include that the CRA work with the CAC to develop that criteria that Commissioner or Mayor Pro Tem just spoke about.
Well, that was going in the direction I was going when I raised my hand. So, but not a problem, because I think it's important, even though today we're having to kind of, I don't want to say backtrack, but we've not followed any process, and I'm the process person probably for this board. So I appreciate that very much, and it needs to be written, and we do need input from the CAC. And they're volunteering, and we appreciate what they're doing, but this is an important process. So absolutely, I will offer that as a friendly amendment to my own motion.
Okay. Before we go down this route, let me double check with the city attorney. Lou, are you still on? I hope so.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any comments.
Okay, so it is germane to tie a future process with this specific project in the motion.
As long as you understand what the motion is, it's your choice. I mean, you could separate it if you wanted to, but if you understand the motion.
Excellent. All right, Dr. Bryant, your motion stands. Commissioner Richardson, are you willing to stick with it as the second?
Yes. And I also had another comment, Mr. Mayor, because one component I don't think has been addressed, and it may have been, I got cut off a couple of times. I'm dealing with my technology here. But the inclusion of minority businesses in the project itself. Mm-hmm. I understand there are some minority businesses. The gym that is currently there will be a part of the project. And in one of the Zoom meetings that I sat in on, a young lady said she was going to apply and submit a letter of interest. So could you talk about, Mr. Borgra? I'm sorry if I got that incorrect. Can you talk about how minority businesses will be included, not just the contracts, but ongoing minority businesses, how they will be involved in this project?
Thank you, Commissioner. We do have a standard leasing process, but I am very happy to say that I have received, as of today, somewhere around 7 or 8, I have to check, letters of intent from minority-owned businesses. And this has been great. From day one, we recognize that this project will be occupied by small businesses, and our existing tenants, both of them, Bantai and the New You Fitness, they both are minority-owned businesses, and they are continuing to be on. They have submitted their own letters to continue to be on this property, on this project. So moving forward, we will be looking into other letters of intent, and again, there will be a standard leasing process. However, I am a minority-owned business. I am looking forward to work with them to make sure they actually become part of this exciting project.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Wonderful. The motion on the table by Commissioner Bryant, seconded by Commissioner Richardson, is for the request of $560,000 in construction grant funds, $216,000 in infrastructure funding, along with the additional language, creating a process for future requests of this magnitude to be developed by both the CRA and the CAC. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We'll do a roll call. I missed it. Maker of the motion, Dr. Bryant.
Yes.
Great. Commissioner Richardson, I did hear you. Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
All right. Commissioner Matlow?
Aye.
And I am a yes. It passes unanimously 5-0. Thank you very much. All right. Do we have any other items to come before us under the Frenchtown Southside District Policy Formation and Direction, Mr. Tedder?
No, sir, we do not.
Great. We are on unagendaed items for anything that commissioners like to bring up. I'll start off real quick by a couple of points I've been thinking about. Mr. Tedder, you and I have had a couple of conversations recently. I am really interested in seeing what we can do to expedite our housing programs in the Frenchtown Southside CRA. We have been talking about it for 1.5 years. We have set aside money specifically for housing. I'm ready to turn dirt. I'm ready to help people with their facade improvements. And so I am looking for you to really put the pedal to the metal, sir. And let's get these programs up and running. And at our next CRA meeting, provide us with a full update of where we are and how we're moving forward. Number 2, with our neighborhood.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure, Commissioner Richardson.
Can I amend to that, Wayne, also that you let us know where the Tallahassee Lenders Consortium is? Because, you know, they're doing our land trust. And so I'm interested in knowing where they are in getting this done as well.
Okay, will do.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Number 2, our neighborhood plans. I am interested in knowing exactly where we are with the bond, Greater Bond Neighborhood Improvement Program. What construction is going on? What does that construction look like? I'm hearing some comments about the amount of money being spent on streetscape versus, again, the importance of housing, and that this might be a changing attitude. I'm not saying that we need to make any decisions. I want to check in and see where we are with the Greater Bond Neighborhood Association Improvement Program. What's been done? What are we working on? Where are we moving forward next, I should say. I'm really looking forward to hearing about us making progress. Next, the Frenchtown Unified Plan. I know that we have got several plans in Frenchtown on the table. I know there is a great effort to bring everybody to the table under one unified plan. I want to know, where are we in that process, and are we ready to put the money to the table and move forward and start development? I want to make sure that we are constantly moving forward in housing, constantly moving forward with our neighborhood plans, and looking forward to a great update on all of them.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, 2 more points. As I mentioned earlier, when we talked about the business grant program that we created, I think we need to redouble our efforts with all businesses in the CRA to remind them of the facade improvement money that is available, that they qualify for, and see what we can do to generate interest and to push that money out to help businesses. By the sheer fact that geographically they are located in the CRA, they qualify for up to $20,000 worth of CRA funding for facade improvement. We should be singing from the high heavens that we have this program available. So let's put our heads together and really come up with a creative way to make sure that everybody knows about that program moving forward. And finally, based on the comments that we received from the public on the previous item, there was a question about the role of the CAC and the frustration that even though the CAC did not recommend this project, it was still on the agenda to come before us. And I think it's important to make sure that we clarify, that I clarify as the chair of the CRA, that we need to remember that while we all completely value the input and work hand in hand with this incredible CAC, at the end of the day, though, the CAC recommendation is a non-legal, non-binding recommendation. It is simply their recommendation based on all of the incredible work that they do. The final decision rests with the CRA. And if the board wants to see a project come before the CRA, then we will also entertain that, whether it might be against the recommendation of the CAC. But I read the comment from the public yesterday and just wanted to clarify, because there seemed to be some confusion about the role of the CAC and the role of the CRA. And I'm glad I had a chance to get that on the record. With that, let's move down the line and give everybody the opportunity to speak. We'll start with Commissioner Bryant. I think you're on mute, Commissioner Bryant.
Here I am again on mute. Okay. This has very little to do with the CRA, but I want to put it out in the atmosphere that there has been several additional requests that we actually provide transportation services from our neighborhoods down to FAMU in order for testing to occur. And we'll talk about it again, obviously, next week in our meeting. But I am definitely pushing that forward because everyone who wants to get tested, who probably cannot get to Patients First and pay for it, will be able to still go to the FAMU site and get a test. So we're going to try and figure out how we can continue to make that happen in the upcoming weeks.
Excellent.
That's it for now. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Commissioner Bryant, I heard this morning that FAMU has increased their capacity to 500 per day, Monday through Saturday. So they're taking the 7th day off. Let me just say that the Greater Frenchtown Southside CRA has frustrated me prior to me coming to the commission, because I have watched it sit dormant pretty much for almost 20 years. It was the first CRA, but then another CRA was developed in the middle of it geographically, and it received all of the attention. The downtown CRA received all of the attention, while the Greater Frenchtown Southside sat on the sidelines looking, waiting for their turn, or our turn. And so now it is our turn. And now what we need to make sure of, though, is that this operates just as smoothly and easily as the downtown did. There seemed to be no issue about how to do whatever needed to be done to make Gain Street and all these other things happen downtown. So now, when we come to this Greater Frenchtown South Side, this one is the one that's really needed because there's a lot of blight. And some may argue whether there was blight downtown. I haven't seen it, but maybe it was. I just didn't see it. I couldn't see it. I had my blinders on. But for sure, the Democrat is writing about it. The nation is talking about it. I live on the South Side. Commissioner Richardson live on the South Side. We see it. People are saying they drive through and it doesn't look like this and doesn't look like that. You can't drive through the South Side and see what's going on. You got to get out and engage, right, Christine? You got to get out and engage because the South Side is not just buildings. It's a spirit of the people who live on the South Side. And so we deserve everything that's coming to us just like everybody else. And right now we're in this movement. It's not a moment, it's a movement that Black Lives Matter. But guess what? The majority of this CRA is Black. And if Black lives really do matter, and it's not just a cliche, then we've got to roll up our sleeves and get down in the dirt and make sure that the next generation of Black lives being produced understand that we took a stand, we drew a line in the sand, and we did all that we could in this time that we have to make sure that we're doing right by our people. And our people are the people of Tallahassee, paying taxes. So I want to make sure that going forward, we have a smooth process. And I want to say to the CAC, thank you. Thank you. Been there, done that. We need the CAC. And granted, thank you, Mayor, for making the clarification that their recommendation coming forward does not have to be accepted. It could be something else can happen. Absolutely. I served on the Planning Commission. We made our recommendation. It wasn't always accepted, but it was still frustrating when it was not accepted, and it needed to be explained why it had not been accepted. Because when you're in meetings, sometimes we had meetings until 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, and you're not getting paid from 6 o'clock p.m. till 1 o'clock in the morning. That's some kind of commitment there, and it takes more than pizza and soda to keep that going, because that's what they served us. So I say to the CAC, stick with us. We're gonna get it right. You're gonna help us get it right. And for developers and neighborhoods that are coming forward, work with us so that we can make sure it's right. I too, Mayor, I've asked on several occasions, I want to know where we are with our neighborhood plans. I want to be able to go to a place where I can see all of the neighborhood plans. Providence, Bridgetown, Southside. I want to Bond. I want to see. I want to be able to go and see what's going on. I'm operating in the blind. So I'm hoping that we will be able to move forward. Let us know, Wayne, what we need to do. If we at the commission level need to do something to try to make this happen, in the city attorney's office, whatever it is we need to do it so that not only can we see it, but others can see it as well and know what we're doing. So our performance is important. And if people say they can't see what we're doing, then that's our problem. We need to make sure they can see what we're doing, and we need to be able to speak intelligently about what we're doing as well. Because I am in the community, as many of you are, and when people talk to me about what's going on, I want to give them the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Thank you.
Well said, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, having had some history with the CAC, I can tell you it's been a work in progress. And we've had people come and go, and we've tried to work the process through the CAC. But I think we're at a point now where we've got that right combination of individuals on the CAC. We've got the right leadership on the CAC. And I'm excited now about where we are in our relationship to the CAC. I mean, many of us have personal relationships with members from the CAC, and we've worked with them in the community through the years. And so this is a new day. I feel like this discussion today has been very productive. I want to thank Commissioner Matlow for his suggestion, because we haven't had it in the past, that we have a process that's outlined and clear that everyone follows. And it goes to the CAC for their consideration before it comes to the CRA board, the commission as the CRA board. We may not always agree. I can't think of a time since I've been on the commission that we didn't agree with the CAC, but we may not always agree. But we certainly ought to give them the opportunity to address the issues that we have before we make that final decision. So I can tell you all, from my perspective, we're moving forward. This is exciting. This is a new day. And I look forward to us, as all of you have already said, being able to show the community what we're doing to improve our neighborhoods. I can tell you, I live within just a couple of blocks of the Bond community, and we've got some work to do. Just maybe a half mile from South City, and we've got some work to do. But we're getting there. I'm comfortable that the commitment is made, that all of us are on the same page, and we now are going to move this thing forward. So I'm excited about it and look forward to working with all of you all. We've got an executive director that is on the ball and getting it done, and a staff. And so I'm excited about where we are and the direction that we're headed. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to have those few comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, and thank you, everybody. I agree with the mayor. At the end of the day, it's always going to be, as the CRA board, we are the elected body and have to make the final decisions and ultimately be held accountable for those decisions. So, Wayne, as we lay out the process, I just want to make sure we incorporate all of that. This is the process. Every project should start with an application, right? Just like we do with the business disability improvement. Everybody who's applied for anything, if they meet the certain criteria that gets laid out, then it moves to the CAC. Whether it's up or down, then it moves to the CRA, and that's the process. And everybody knows it, and they know, no matter who they are, they don't need to call their own number at the CRA. They don't need to reach out to us first, but they need to go through this process, which always has to start with an application, so we can see everybody who's interested in working with the CRA or doing business in the CRA. And I think that's what's missing right now, is people just don't know, or they'll have to pick up the phone and say, hey, I have this cool idea, which is a cool idea, but we don't have that first step to direct them to. So that's what I'll be looking forward to. And it's been great to work with everybody today.
Excellent. Okay, so Wayne, based upon the actions that will be taken or not taken at the County Commission meeting come July 14th, you will give me a call. Let's talk about scheduling an emergency meeting, if we will, or just an extra meeting. I think what's appropriate, Wayne, is for you to provide a written update to all of the members of the CRA after the July meeting of the County Commission, letting us know of what actions were taken. Obviously, we'll all provide our feedback to you. And then, if necessary, schedule a meeting as soon thereof. Just out of curiosity, while we have everybody publicly noticed, if we were to call a special meeting, I am assuming sooner rather than later would be more appropriate, i.e., mid to late July versus early August. Am I assuming correctly, colleagues?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, so Wayne, we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Seeing no other business coming before the CRA, we stand adjourned.
Goodbye, y'all.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Alrighty.